I decided to visit my husband at his workplace as a CEO. At the entrance, there was a sign that said, "Congratulations to our CEO Clifton Hayes and VP Yvette Morrison on your engagement. Wishing you both a lifetime of happiness together." I stood there in the lobby of Hayes and Morrison Financial Group, my husband's company, staring at that sign like it was written in a language I didn't understand. My hands were shaking so bad that the lunch basket I'd brought nearly slipped from my fingers. The receptionist, a young woman I'd never seen before, smiled at me like nothing was wrong. "Can I help you, ma'am?" she asked. I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but no words came out. 28 years of marriage. 28 years of cooking his favorite meals, ironing his shirts, supporting his dreams, raising our children. Standing by his side at every company event. And there was a sign announcing his engagement to someone else. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The receptionist stood up, concern crossing her face. I finally found my voice. "I'm Mrs. Hayes, Clifton Hayes's wife." The color drained from her face faster than water down a drain. "Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married. Nobody here knew. Ms. Morrison always said—" "Where is he?" My voice came out cold and hard, a voice I didn't recognize as my own. Before we continue, please comment below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to help us hit that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. Let me take you back to the beginning, to how a 63-year-old woman like me ended up standing in that lobby with her whole world crashing down around her. My name is Vivian Hayes, and I've spent the last 28 years being what I thought was the perfect wife. I met Clifton when I was 35 years old, working as a bookkeeper for a small accounting firm in Atlanta. He was 42, divorced, and building his dream of starting a financial consulting business. He was handsome, ambitious, and he made me feel like I was the most important person in his world. We got married 6 months after we met. Some folks at Greater Hope Baptist Church said it was too fast, but Clifton said, "When you know, you know." And I thought I knew too. Those early years were hard. Clifton worked 18-hour days building his business. I quit my job to support him, managing the books from home, answering phones, setting up meetings. We didn't have much money, but we had each other, or so I thought. The business took off about 10 years into our marriage. Hayes. Financial consulting became Hayes and Morrison Financial Group when Clifton brought on Yvette Morrison as his vice president. She was sharp, he said, brilliant with clients, had an MBA from a top school. I met her at the company Christmas party that year. She was 36 years old, tall, beautiful, confident. She shook my hand and called me Mrs. Hayes with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Your husband speaks so highly of you," she said. "He says you're the backbone of everything he's built." I should have seen the warning signs then. The way Clifton's eyes followed her across the room. The way he laughed a little too hard at her jokes. But I trusted my husband. I trusted the man I'd built a life with. Over the next 15 years, Clifton's business grew into one of the most successful Black-owned financial firms in Georgia. We moved into a beautiful house in Cascade Heights. We joined the country club. Clifton was featured in magazines, spoke at conferences, was invited to serve on boards. I was so proud of him. I stood beside him at every gala, every fundraiser, every award ceremony, smiling for the cameras, the perfect CEO's wife. But something changed about 5 years ago. Clifton started coming home later and later. Business dinners, he said, client emergencies, conference calls with the West Coast. I believed him, because why wouldn't I? After 23 years of marriage, you don't just stop trusting your husband. Then the overnight trips started. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. Sometimes he'd be gone for a week at a time. I kept the home fires burning. I attended church on Sundays, had dinner with our small circle of friends, volunteered with the ladies' auxiliary. I was lonely, but I told myself this was the price of success. This was what being married to a powerful man looked like. 3 months ago, things got worse. Clifton started picking fights with me over nothing. I cooked his favorite meal, smothered chicken with rice and gravy, and he complained it was too salty. I asked him about his day, and he accused me of interrogating him. I suggested we take a vacation together, just the two of us, and he said I was being clingy. "Vivian, you need to find your own interests," he told me one night, his voice cold. "You can't make me your whole life. It's suffocating." Suffocating. After 28 years of putting his needs before mine, of building my entire world around him, I was suffocating him. I tried to give him space. I joined a book club at the church. I started taking morning walks with my neighbor, Loretta, a retired school teacher who'd been widowed 5 years earlier. She was the one who first suggested something might be wrong. "Honey, I don't want to speak out of turn," Loretta said one morning as we walked through the neighborhood. But my late husband acted just like Clifton did before I found out about his affair. Picking fights, staying gone, making me feel like I was the problem. I defended Clifton immediately. "It's not like that, he's just stressed with work." Loretta gave me a look that said she didn't believe me, but she didn't push. "Just keep your eyes open, baby, that's all I'm saying." I couldn't stop thinking about what Loretta said, so I started paying closer attention. I noticed Clifton's phone was always face down now. He changed his passwords on his laptop. He started showering as soon as he got home, even if he'd been gone for just a few hours. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. and found him on the back porch, talking on his phone in a low voice. When he saw me, he ended the call quickly. "Just a client," he said. "Go back to bed." But I'd heard him say, "I love you too," before he hung up. When I asked him about it, he exploded. "You're spying on me now? This is exactly what I'm talking about, Vivian. You're paranoid. You're making up problems that don't exist. Maybe you need to see someone about your mental health." He made me doubt myself, made me wonder if I was losing my mind. That's what hurts the most, looking back. He gaslit me into thinking I was crazy for trusting my own instincts. Last week, everything came to a head. Clifton sat me down at the kitchen table and said we needed to talk. My heart started racing. I knew this conversation wasn't going to be good. "Vivian, I think we need some time apart," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I've been unhappy for a long time. You've become distant and cold. I feel like I don't even know you anymore." I stared at him in shock. "I've become distant? Clifton, you're the one who's never home. You're the one who's been pulling away." "See? This is what I mean. You never take responsibility for your part in our problems. It's always my fault, never yours." He stood up, straightening his tie. "I'm going to stay at a hotel for a while. We can discuss next steps through lawyers." Lawyers. He was already talking about lawyers. "Are you having an affair?" The words fell out of my mouth before I could stop them. Clifton's face hardened. "I'm not doing this with you. I'm not going to be accused of things I haven't done. This is exactly why I need space. You're always attacking me." He left that night with a suitcase, and I sat in our beautiful house, in our expensive neighborhood, and I cried until I had no tears left. The next morning, I called my sister, Francine, who lives in Savannah. Through my tears, I told her everything. "That man is lying to you," Francine said, her voice hot with anger. "Vivian, wake up. Men don't just suddenly decide they need space after 28 years unless there's someone else. You need to find out the truth." "How? He's changed all his passwords. I don't know where he's staying." "I don't—" "Go to his office," Francine interrupted. "Show up unannounced. Bring him lunch like you used to do in the old days. Watch how he reacts. Watch how his staff reacts. You'll get your answer." So that's what I did. This morning, I made Clifton's favorite lunch: fried catfish, collard greens, cornbread, and peach cobbler. Packed it in a basket, put on my best dress, and drove to Hayes and Morrison Financial Group downtown. I'd only been to Clifton's new office building once before, when they'd first moved in 3 years ago. It was a beautiful high-rise in the heart of the business district. As I walked through the parking garage toward the entrance, I was rehearsing what I'd say. I'd be sweet, loving, show him what he was throwing away. Then I saw the sign. And now I was standing in the lobby with a receptionist who looked like she might throw up, and my entire life was a lie. "Mrs. Hayes, please, let me get Mr. Hayes for you," the receptionist said, reaching for her phone with trembling hands. "Don't." My voice was steady now, cold as ice. "I'll find him myself." I walked past her desk toward the elevators, ignoring her protests. The lunch basket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Or maybe that was just my heart. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like it took forever and no time at all. When the doors opened, I stepped into a reception area I'd never seen before. The walls were decorated with photos, professional photos, beautiful black and white images in expensive frames. And every single one was of Clifton and Yvette. Clifton and Yvette at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Clifton and Yvette accepting an award. Clifton and Yvette at what looked like a beach resort, him in linen pants and her in a sundress, both of them laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. In 28 years of marriage, Clifton and I had maybe 10 photos together displayed in our home. He always said he didn't like having his picture taken. "Can I help you?" Another receptionist, this one older with kind eyes that went wide when she saw my face. "Oh no. Oh, sweetheart, you must be his wife," I finished. "Where are they?" She didn't ask who I meant. She pointed down a hallway with a shaking finger. "Corner office, but maybe you should—" I didn't wait to hear what I should do. I walked down that hallway like I was walking through a nightmare. Because that's what this was. A nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The corner office had glass walls and a closed door. Through the glass, I could see them, Clifton and Yvette. He was sitting on the edge of his desk, and she was standing between his legs, her arms around his neck. They were kissing like teenagers, like they had all the time in the world, like there wasn't a wife of 28 years walking toward them with her heart breaking into a million pieces. I opened the door without knocking. They sprang apart. Clifton's face went from relaxed to shocked to angry in the space of a heartbeat. "Vivian? What the hell are you doing here?" I held up the lunch basket. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt cold all over, numb, like I was watching this happen to someone else. "I brought you lunch," I said, "the way I used to. Remember? When we were building this business together? When you said I was your backbone? Your partner?" Yvette had the decency to look uncomfortable. She stepped away from Clifton, smoothing down her skirt. "I should go." "No," I said. "Stay. I want you here for this. I want you to see what you've won." I walked to Clifton's desk and set down the basket. Then I looked at the man I'd loved for 28 years. The man I'd sacrificed everything for, and I saw a stranger. "How long?" I asked. "Vivian, this isn't the time or place. How long have you been lying to me?" Clifton's jaw tightened. "We'll discuss this at home. We don't have a home anymore, remember? You moved out. You said you needed space, but that was a lie too, wasn't it? You didn't move to a hotel. You moved in with her." Yvette's face confirmed what I'd guessed. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. 15 years, Clifton said finally, his voice flat. "Yvette and I have been together for 15 years. We bought a house in Buckhead 5 years ago. We have a life together. A real life, not the empty shell I've been living with you." 15 years. While I was playing the devoted wife, while I was standing beside him at church, at fundraisers, at family gatherings, while I was making his favorite meals and ironing his shirts and believing every lie that came out of his mouth. "Did anyone else know?" My voice cracked. "Did your staff know? Your clients? Our friends?" "Everyone who matters knows," Yvette said quietly. "We've been public in our business circles for years. We just kept it away from certain social situations." Certain social situations. She meant me. They'd kept it away from me. The engagement, I said, remembering the sign. When? Last week, Clifton said. Right after I moved out. I was going to tell you through my lawyer. I've already filed for divorce, Vivian. The papers should be served to you any day now. He'd already filed, already moved on, already rebuilt his entire life without me, and I'd been the last to know. I gave you everything, I whispered. I gave up my career, my dreams, my independence. I built you up, supported you, stood by you through every struggle. And this is what you do to me? You gave up your career because you wanted to, Clifton snapped. I never asked you to quit your job. You made yourself dependent on me, and then you made that my problem. Yvette has her own career, her own identity. She doesn't need me to feel complete. That's the difference. His words hit me like physical blows. This was how he saw me, dependent, needy, suffocating. He'd rewritten our entire history to make himself the victim and me the villain. Get out, Yvette said, her voice harder now. You're making a scene. This is a place of business. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the truth. She wasn't uncomfortable because she felt bad. She was uncomfortable because I was an inconvenience, an obstacle she thought they'd already removed. You're right, I said. This is a place of business. Hayes and Morrison Financial Group. Tell me, Clifton, when did Yvette become a partner? When did her name go on the building? Something flickered in Clifton's eyes. That's none of your concern. It's every bit my concern. I worked for this business for free for 10 years. I managed the books, handled the accounting, built the client database. This company was built on my labor too. I smiled, and it felt like ice forming on my face. I wonder what a good divorce lawyer would say about that. Clifton stood up, his face darkening. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? You've already filed for divorce. You've already humiliated me, betrayed me, thrown away 28 years like they meant nothing. What exactly do I have left to lose? Everything, Clifton said, his voice low and threatening. You have everything to lose, Vivian. I've already talked to my lawyer. You'll get whatever the law requires, but that's it. I built this business. Me, not you. And I'll make sure everyone knows that you were just a kept woman who contributed nothing. A kept woman. After everything I'd done. I picked up the lunch basket. You know what, Clifton? Keep your lunch. I hope you and Yvette are very happy together. I hope you get everything you deserve. I walked out of that office with my head high, past the gawking staff, past the photos of their happy life together, past the receptionist who looked like she wanted to say something comforting but didn't know what. I made it to my car before I started shaking, before the rage and humiliation and grief crashed over me like a wave. I sat in the parking garage and screamed until my throat was raw. Then I dried my eyes, started the engine, and drove straight to Loretta's house. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. I told her about the sign, about Yvette, about the 15 years of lies. I told her about Clifton's threats and his cruelty and the way he'd made me feel like I was nothing. Loretta listened to every word. Then she made me a cup of tea, sat down across from me at her kitchen table, and said the words that would change everything. Honey, my husband tried to pull the same thing. Tried to divorce me and leave me with nothing after 30 years. You know what I did? I shook my head. I fought back. I got a lawyer who specialized in complex divorces. And I discovered my husband had been hiding money, underreporting income, all kinds of financial tricks. When we were done, I got half of everything plus alimony. He thought I was just a housewife who didn't know anything about money. She smiled. But I'd been paying attention all those years. I knew where every penny was. Something clicked in my brain. I was a bookkeeper. I'd managed Clifton's business in the early years. I knew how to read financial statements, how to track money, how to find inconsistencies. I need a lawyer, I said. A really good one. I know just the person, Loretta said. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Denise, it's Loretta Freeman. I have a friend who needs your help. Can you see her today? 1 hour later, I was sitting in the office of Denise Whitmore, a 50-year-old divorce attorney with a reputation for destroying cheating husbands in court. She listened to my story, took notes, and asked questions that made me realize just how much I didn't know about my own finances. Here's what's going to happen, Denise said. Clifton thinks you're weak. He thinks you'll take whatever he offers and disappear quietly. We're going to prove him very wrong. I need you to gather every financial document you can find. Bank statements, tax returns, business records, everything. If he built that business during your marriage, you have a claim to it. And if he's been hiding assets or income, we'll find it. But I don't have access to his records anymore, I said. Denise smiled. You'd be surprised what we can access through legal discovery. And here's something else. You said you managed the books for the first 10 years? I nodded. Then you know the business's finances. You know the clients, the accounts, the structure. That's valuable information, Vivian. You're not some helpless wife. You're a woman with inside knowledge of a potentially fraudulent operation. Fraudulent? If Clifton has been underreporting business income to pay less in taxes, that's fraud. If he's been hiding assets to avoid property division, that's fraud. If he's been paying his girlfriend a salary that's really just funneling marital assets to her, that's fraud. And based on what you've told me, I'd bet my license that we're going to find all three. For the first time since I saw that sign in the lobby, I felt something other than grief and rage. I felt hope, and I felt power. What do I need to do? I asked. Go home, find everything, and whatever you do, don't let Clifton know you've hired me. Let him think you're falling apart. Let him think you're the weak, dependent woman he's been telling everyone you are, and while he's underestimating you, we'll be building a case that will destroy him. I left Denise's office with a plan and a fire in my belly. Clifton Hayes thought he'd broken me. Thought he could throw me away after 28 years and face no consequences. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. When I got home, I went straight to Clifton's home office. He'd taken his laptop, but he'd left behind filing cabinets full of old records. Records from the early years, when I'd been managing everything. Records he probably thought didn't matter anymore. I started pulling out files, and that's when I found it. A folder marked property holdings that I'd never seen before. Inside were deeds to properties I didn't know we owned. Rental properties in Atlanta, a vacation home in Florida, investment properties in 3 different states, all purchased during our marriage, all in Clifton's name only, all worth millions of dollars that he'd never mentioned to me. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from grief, it was from rage. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of every document. Then I found the tax returns from the last 10 years. I compared them to the property records, and my bookkeeper's brain immediately saw the discrepancies. Clifton had been underreporting rental income. By a lot. I was so focused on the documents that I didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear footsteps coming down the hall, didn't know I wasn't alone until Clifton's voice made me jump. What the hell do you think you're doing? I spun around, my phone still in my hand with photos of Clifton's hidden properties on the screen. He was standing in the doorway of his office, his face twisted with anger. I'm finding out the truth about my husband, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. Or should I say, my soon-to-be ex-husband who's been stealing from me for years. Clifton strode into the room, reaching for my phone. Give me that. I stepped back, holding the phone against my chest. Don't touch me. Those are private documents, Vivian. You have no right. I have every right. We're still married, remember? That means half of everything is mine, including all these properties you forgot to mention. I held up one of the deeds. When did you buy a beach house in Destin, Florida, Clifton? Was that before or after you told me we couldn't afford to take a vacation? His jaw clenched. I built this wealth with my own hard work. During our marriage, with money that belongs to both of us. And you've been hiding it. I grabbed another file. Rental properties in Atlanta that aren't on our tax returns. Investment properties in Birmingham and Charlotte. Do you know what this is called, Clifton? It's called fraud. His face went pale. You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. I was a bookkeeper, remember? I know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been underreporting income to avoid taxes and to hide assets from me. And now I have proof. Clifton's expression changed from angry to calculating. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost gentle. Vivian, baby, let's not do this. Let's not make this ugly. I know you're hurt, and you have every right to be. I handled this badly. But we can work this out like civilized people. I'd heard that tone before. It was the same one he'd used when he was courting me, when he wanted something from me. It wasn't going to work this time. You filed for divorce, I said. You threatened me. You told me I'd get the bare minimum and nothing more. You called me a kept woman who contributed nothing. So no, Clifton, we're not going to work this out like civilized people. We're going to work this out in court. His face hardened again. If you try to fight me on this, I will bury you. I have the best lawyers in Atlanta. I have money and power and connections. What do you have? Nothing. You're a 63-year-old woman with no job, no income, and no prospects. You think any judge is going to take your side? I think a judge is going to be very interested in why a successful CEO has been committing tax fraud for years, I said. I think the IRS is going to be very interested too. Clifton's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, hard. You wouldn't dare. If you report me to the IRS, you'll go down with me. Those are joint tax returns, Vivian. You signed them too. I jerked my wrist away from him. Get out of this house. Now. This is my house. This is our house. Community property, remember? And you moved out. You abandoned the marital home, so get out before I call the police and tell them you're threatening me. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. His fist clenched at his side, and something dark flashed in his eyes. But then he took a step back. This isn't over, he said. You have no idea what I'm capable of. And you have no idea what I'm capable of, I shot back. Now get out. After he left, I locked every door and window in the house. Then I called Denise Whitmore and told her everything that had just happened. He grabbed your wrist? Her voice was sharp. Did he leave a mark? I looked down. There was a red mark already starting to bruise. Yes. Take photos, right now, multiple angles, and I want you to file a police report tonight. We're going to get a protective order. Denise, I don't want to. Vivian, listen to me. Clifton just showed you who he really is. A man who will use physical intimidation when he doesn't get his way. We need to document this, and we need to make sure you're safe. Safe? I hadn't even thought about my safety. I'd been so focused on the documents, on building my case, that I hadn't stopped to think about what Clifton might do if he felt cornered. That night, Loretta came over and stayed with me while a police officer took my statement and photos of my wrist. The officer was a young black woman who looked at me with sympathy. Mrs. Hayes, I've seen this before, she said gently. Men like your husband think they're untouchable. They think their money and status protect them from consequences. But domestic violence is domestic violence, no matter who you are. I'm going to file this report, and I strongly encourage you to get a restraining order. After she left, Loretta made us both tea and sat with me at the kitchen table. You did the right thing, she said. I feel like I'm the one who did something wrong, I admitted. Like I'm betraying him. Honey, he betrayed you 15 years ago when he started sleeping with that woman. He betrayed you every day since then when he lied to your face. He betrayed you when he hid money and property from you, and he betrayed you today when he put his hands on you. You're not the villain in this story. I knew she was right, but 28 years of putting Clifton first was a hard habit to break. The next morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls and 30 text messages from Clifton. The messages started out apologetic. "I'm sorry for yesterday, I was just upset," and quickly escalated to threatening. "If you think you can destroy me, you're wrong. I will make sure you end up with nothing." I forwarded everything to Denise. By noon, I had a temporary restraining order. Clifton was not allowed to come within 500 feet of me or the house. By 2 p.m., Clifton's lawyer had filed an emergency motion claiming I was trying to steal business documents and demanding I return everything I'd taken from his office. By 4 p.m., Denise had filed our response along with a motion for full financial discovery and a request for emergency spousal support. "The war has officially begun," Denise said when she called to update me. "And Vivian, we just got access to his business bank accounts through Discovery. You're going to want to sit down for this." I sat down on my couch, my heart pounding. Hayes and Morrison Financial Group has been paying Yvette Morrison a salary of $500,000 a year. That's reasonable for a VP, but they've also been paying her consulting fees of another $300,000 a year, and those fees, they started exactly 15 years ago. 15 years, the entire length of their affair. "That's not all," Denise continued. "The beach house in Destin? Paid for with business funds, written off as a corporate retreat property. The rental properties? Purchased through a shell company that Clifton owns. Funded by money funneled out of the business. Vivian, your husband has been systematically stealing from his own company to build a secret empire. Can we prove it? With what you found? Absolutely. And here's the beautiful part. Hayes and Morrison is a legitimate business with real clients and investors. If those investors knew Clifton was siphoning off money for personal use, they'd be furious. If his business partners knew, they could sue him. If the IRS knew, he'd face criminal charges." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we have leverage. Real leverage. Clifton thought he held all the cards, but you just found his hand. And it's not as strong as he thinks." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those 15 years, about every lie Clifton had told me, about every time I'd trusted him when I should have been questioning him. Around midnight, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello?" "Vivian?" It was a woman's voice, older, uncertain. "This is Gloria Morrison, Yvette's mother." I sat up in bed, my heart racing. "How did you get this number?" "From the church directory at Greater Hope. I need to talk to you, in person. Tomorrow, if you can. Please, it's important." "Why would I want to talk to you? Your daughter has been sleeping with my husband for 15 years. There was a long pause. Then Gloria said, "That's why I need to talk to you. Because there are things you don't know. Things my daughter doesn't even know I know. And if you want to protect yourself, you need to hear them." Every instinct told me this was a bad idea, but curiosity won out. "Where?" "The Busy Bee Cafe. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be wearing a red hat." She hung up before I could respond. I called Loretta immediately and told her about the call. "You're not going alone," Loretta said. "I'm coming with you, and we're telling your lawyer first." The next morning, Loretta and I sat in a booth at the Busy Bee Cafe, a soul food restaurant in the old Fourth Ward that had been serving the Black community for decades. I was nursing a cup of coffee and trying not to be nervous when Gloria Morrison walked in. She was in her early 70s, elegant in a way that reminded me of the church mothers at Greater Hope. She wore a red hat, just like she'd said, and carried herself with the kind of dignity that comes from surviving hard times. She sat down across from me without asking permission. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know you have no reason to trust me." "You're right. I don't." Gloria looked down at her hands. "I'm going to tell you something that my daughter would kill me for saying. But I can't watch another woman be destroyed by the same man who destroyed my family." "What are you talking about?" "Yvette isn't Clifton's first affair," Gloria said quietly. "She's his pattern. 20 years ago, before he met you, Clifton was married to his college sweetheart, Denise Hayes. They were married for 18 years, and for the last 10 years of that marriage, Clifton was having an affair with one of his employees. A woman he promoted, gave special treatment to, eventually left his first wife for. The room seemed to tilt. He told me he was divorced when we met. He was, but he told you it was amicable, didn't he? That they just grew apart? I nodded slowly. It wasn't amicable. Denise fought him for years. She tried to prove he'd been hiding money, cheating, stealing from the business. But Clifton had better lawyers, and back then she didn't have the proof she needed. She ended up with almost nothing. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment in Columbus, working as a bank teller. My stomach turned. And the employee he left her for? You, Gloria said, meeting my eyes. You were the employee, Vivian. You were the affair that destroyed his first marriage. The words hit me like a slap. No, that's not true. Clifton was single when we met. He told you what he needed to tell you to get what he wanted. Just like he's been telling Yvette whatever she needs to hear. Gloria pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. This is Denise Hayes, Clifton's first wife. Does she look familiar? I stared at the photo. The woman was black, in her 60s now, with kind eyes and gray hair. She looked tired, defeated. I want you to meet her, Gloria said, because she has documents, proof of the same things Clifton did to her that he's doing to you. And together, you two can stop him from doing this to anyone else. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Your daughter is engaged to him. Gloria's face hardened. Because my daughter is making the biggest mistake of her life, and she won't listen to me. She thinks Clifton loves her. She thinks she's special, that she's different from you. But she's not. In 5 years, maybe 10, Clifton will get bored. He'll find another young woman at the office, and Yvette will end up exactly where you are now. You want me to help your daughter? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No, I want you to help yourself, and in the process, maybe my daughter will wake up and see the truth before it's too late. Gloria stood up. Denise's number is in your phone now. I texted it to you before you got here. Call her, or don't. But know that you're not alone in this. You're not the first woman Clifton Hayes has destroyed. And if we don't stop him, you won't be the last. She walked out of the restaurant, leaving me staring after her. Loretta reached across the table and took my hand. Breathe, honey. Just breathe. I was shaking. I was the other woman. I destroyed someone's marriage. I'm no better than Yvette. No, Loretta said firmly. You were lied to. Clifton told you he was divorced. You didn't know any different. That's not your fault. But it felt like my fault. It felt like karma, like I was getting exactly what I deserved for being naive enough to trust a man I barely knew. I looked down at my phone. There was a text from an unknown number. This is Denise Hayes. Gloria told me she talked to you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I have information that can help you. Please call me. I showed the text to Loretta. What are you going to do? She asked. I thought about the last 28 years, about every sacrifice I'd made, every dream I'd given up, every time I'd put Clifton's needs before my own. I thought about the woman in the photo, living in a studio apartment, working as a bank teller after 18 years of marriage to the same man. I thought about Yvette, thinking she'd won some kind of prize, not knowing she was just the next victim in line. And I made my decision. I dialed the number. Denise answered on the first ring. Hello? This is Vivian Hayes, I said. Gloria Morrison says you have information I need. I do. And I've been waiting 28 years to take that man down. Are you ready to help me do it? I looked at Loretta, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Good, because I've spent the last 3 decades documenting everything Clifton Hayes did to me, and I know exactly where all the bodies are buried. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Denise Whitmore's office with Denise Hayes, Clifton's first wife, listening to a story that made my blood run cold. "Clifton doesn't just hide money," the first Denise said. "He steals it. From his business partners, his investors, even his clients. He's been running a sophisticated scheme for over 30 years. He underreports business income, creates fake expenses, funnels money through shell companies. And he's gotten away with it because he's careful. Very careful." "But you have proof?" my lawyer asked. "I have copies of documents from our divorce proceedings. Financial records, business files, emails. I saved everything, even though my lawyer told me it was over and I should move on. I knew one day someone would need this." She spread papers across Denise Whitmore's desk. Bank statements showing suspicious transfers. Business records with inconsistencies. Communications that proved Clifton had been planning his financial deception for years. "There's more," the first Denise continued. "Clifton has been using Hayes and Morrison to launder money for some of his clients, wealthy individuals who want to hide assets from the government. He charges them premium fees for his discretion. I couldn't prove it during my divorce, but I know it's true. And if you can get access to his private files, you'll find the evidence." My lawyer's eyes were gleaming. If we can prove even half of this, Clifton Hayes isn't just looking at a divorce. He's looking at federal charges. "Exactly," the first Denise said. She turned to me. "I'm sorry about what happened to you. I'm sorry you got caught up in Clifton's web, but I'm not sorry that you finally have a chance to stop him." "Why didn't you do this yourself?" I asked. "Why wait for me?" "Because I don't have standing anymore. Our divorce was finalized decades ago. But you're still married to him. You have access to information I could never get, and more importantly, you have something I didn't have." "What's that?" The first Denise smiled grimly. "You have me. And between the two of us, we know everything about Clifton Hayes. Every trick, every lie, every hidden account. He thinks he's untouchable, but he's about to learn that the women he threw away are the ones who will bring him down." I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since I saw that sign in the lobby, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a fighter. "What do we need to do?" I asked. My lawyer leaned forward. "We need to get inside Clifton's private files, his personal computer, his home office at the Buckhead house, his safe deposit boxes, everything. And we need to do it legally, through discovery, before he has a chance to destroy evidence." "He'll never agree to that," I said. "He doesn't have to agree. We'll get a court order. But we need to move fast before he realizes how much danger he's in." That night, Denise Whitmore filed an emergency motion requesting access to all of Clifton's financial records, including his business files, personal accounts, and correspondence. She also filed a motion to freeze all marital assets, preventing Clifton from hiding or transferring anything before the divorce was finalized. Clifton's response came within hours. His lawyer filed a counter-motion calling my requests vindictive harassment and claiming I was trying to destroy his business out of spite. But the judge wasn't convinced. 3 days later, we got our court order. Clifton had to turn over every financial document we requested within 2 weeks. The night after the ruling, my phone rang at 3 a.m. It was an unknown number, but I answered it anyway. "You're making a huge mistake." Clifton's voice was cold and dangerous. "If you don't drop this, I will destroy you. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of woman you really are. I will drag your name through the mud until you wish you'd never been born." I should have been scared. A few weeks ago, I would have been scared. But now, with everything I knew, all I felt was anger. "Go ahead and try," I said. "Because while you're busy trying to destroy me, I'll be busy showing the world who you really are. A thief, a liar, a man who commits fraud and thinks he's above the law. So bring it on, Clifton. Let's see who destroys who." I hung up on him. And for the first time in 28 years, I felt free. The next morning, Clifton's lawyer filed an emergency motion to have our divorce case sealed, claiming that my allegations were damaging to his business reputation. That same afternoon, someone leaked our entire case file to the press. By evening, the story was everywhere. Prominent Atlanta CEO accused of financial fraud by wife, the headlines read. Hayes and Morrison Financial Group under investigation for tax evasion and asset hiding. My phone rang. It was Denise Whitmore. "Did you leak those files?" she asked. "No. Did you?" "No. But whoever did just changed everything. This isn't just a divorce anymore, Vivian. This is a public scandal, and Clifton is going to come at you with everything he has." She was right. Within an hour, Clifton's PR team had released a statement claiming I was a scorned wife making false accusations. They painted me as unstable, jealous, and vindictive. But they couldn't stop what was coming. Because once the press started digging, they found more than just my story. They found complaints from former clients, whispers about suspicious business practices, questions about how Clifton had built his wealth so quickly. And then they found the first Denise, and she told them everything. The interview aired on the local news 3 days later. Denise Hayes, sitting calmly in front of the camera, explaining how Clifton had stolen from her, lied to her, destroyed her financially and emotionally, how she'd spent decades trying to warn people about him, only to be dismissed as a bitter ex-wife. "I'm not bitter," she said, looking directly at the camera. "I'm angry, and I'm tired of watching Clifton Hayes hurt women and get away with it, so I'm speaking out now while there's still time to stop him." The interview went viral. Within days, 3 more former employees came forward with their own stories of how Clifton had harassed them, manipulated them, or fired them when they refused his advances. Hayes and Morrison. Financial Group was in freefall. Clients were pulling their accounts. Business partners were demanding audits. The Georgia Secretary of State launched an investigation into the company's practices. And Clifton was losing his mind. He showed up at the house despite the restraining order, pounding on the door and screaming at me to come outside. "You ruined me," he shouted. "Everything I built, everything I worked for, you destroyed it." I called 911. The police came and arrested him for violating the protective order. As they put him in handcuffs, Clifton looked at me with pure hatred. "I will never forgive you for this," he said. "Good," I replied, "because I'll never forgive you for what you did to me." They took him away, and I stood in my doorway watching the police car disappear down the street. Loretta came over immediately and found me sitting in the kitchen, shaking. "It's over," I said. "It's really over." "No, honey," Loretta said gently. "It's not over. It's just beginning. Because now comes the hard part, rebuilding your life." She was right. The next few weeks were chaos. Lawyers, depositions, court hearings. The press camped outside my house. People I thought were friends stopped calling. People from church looked at me with pity or judgment. I couldn't tell which. But there were bright spots, too. Women I'd never met sent me messages of support. Survivors of financial abuse reached out to share their stories. And slowly, I started to realize that I wasn't alone. The first Denise became my unlikely friend. We met for coffee once a week, 2 women who'd been destroyed by the same man, now helping each other heal. "Do you regret it?" she asked me one day. "Going after him so publicly?" I thought about it. I thought about the humiliation, the judgment, the pain. "No," I said finally. "Because if I hadn't fought back, he would have done this to someone else. Maybe he still will. But at least now, everyone knows who he really is." 3 weeks after Clifton's arrest, my lawyer called with news. "The IRS has opened a criminal investigation into Hayes and Morrison Financial Group," Denise Whitmore said. "They found evidence of tax fraud going back 15 years. Clifton could be facing federal charges." What does that mean for our divorce? It means we have all the leverage we need. Clifton's lawyers are already reaching out about a settlement. They want this to go away before it gets worse. What kind of settlement? Vivian, you should sit down for this. I sat. They're offering you half of everything. The house, the properties, the business assets, everything. Plus 5 years of alimony at $200,000 a year. Plus they'll pay all your legal fees. In exchange, you agree not to testify against Clifton in any criminal proceedings. Half of everything. After 28 years, I'd finally get what I deserved. But there was a catch. If I took the deal, Clifton might avoid prison. He might get away with everything he'd done. Can I think about it? I asked. You have 72 hours. I spent those 3 days talking to everyone. Loretta, the first Denise, even Gloria Morrison, who called to check on me. Take the money, Gloria said. I know you want justice, but you need to think about your future. You're 63 years old, Vivian. You need financial security. But the first Denise disagreed. If you let him buy his way out of this, he'll do it again. Maybe not to another wife, but to someone. His clients, his employees, someone. The only way to truly stop him is to let the law handle this. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted the money, wanted the security, wanted to just move on with my life. But part of me wanted to see Clifton face real consequences for what he'd done. On the 3rd day, I made my decision. I called Denise Whitmore and told her I was rejecting the settlement offer. Are you sure? She asked. I'm sure. I want my half of everything, but I won't agree to stay silent. If the federal prosecutors want me to testify against Clifton, I will. He needs to be held accountable, not just to me, but to everyone he's hurt. Vivian, you could end up with less money this way. A lot less. I know, but some things are more important than money. 2 days later, federal prosecutors filed criminal charges against Clifton Hayes for tax evasion, wire fraud, and money laundering. The indictment was 50 pages long and detailed crimes going back 20 years. Clifton turned himself in. His bail was set at $2 million, and his business, the company he'd spent 30 years building, collapsed completely. Hayes and Morrison Financial Group filed for bankruptcy. Yvette Morrison resigned as VP and released a statement saying she'd been unaware of any illegal activities. I didn't believe her. But I also didn't care anymore. Yvette Morrison was Clifton's problem now, not mine. My divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house in Cascade Heights, half the value of all the properties Clifton had hidden, and 3 years of alimony. It wasn't as much as the settlement offer, but it was fair, and it was honest. Clifton got 4 years in federal prison. The day of his sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and watched him stand before the judge. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The powerful CEO was gone. In his place was just a bitter old man who'd finally been caught. Before the judge announced his sentence, she asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I stood up slowly. Every eye in the courtroom turned to me. Your Honor, I spent 28 years of my life loving a man who was lying to me every single day. He stole my time, my money, my dignity, and my sense of self. He made me doubt my own mind. He tried to make me believe I was worthless. I looked directly at Clifton. But I'm not worthless. I'm strong. I'm smart. And I'm still standing here while you're the one facing prison. I hope you think about that every day you're locked up. I hope you remember that the woman you tried to destroy is the one who brought you down. The courtroom was silent. Then the judge spoke. Mr. Hayes, you've shown a pattern of manipulation, deception, and financial abuse that spans decades. You've used your position of power to harm vulnerable people, including your own wives. You've stolen from your clients, committed fraud against the government, and shown no remorse for your actions. This court sentences you to 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You will also pay restitution to your victims and to the IRS in the amount of $3.7 million. The gavel came down. And just like that, it was over. As they led Clifton away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. I don't know what he was expecting to see. Tears, maybe. Or triumph. But all he saw was a woman who was finally free. 6 months after Clifton's sentencing, I woke up in my house now, not our house, and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd cried about him. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky pink and gold. I'd started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd started doing a lot of things I wanted to do. The house felt different now. I'd redecorated, removing every trace of Clifton's presence. The dark, heavy furniture he'd insisted on was gone, replaced with lighter pieces that made the rooms feel open and bright. The photos of us together had been taken down. In their place were pictures of me with Loretta, with the church ladies, with my book club, pictures of the life I was building without him. I made myself coffee and sat on the back porch, watching the neighborhood come to life. This had become my favorite time of day. Quiet, peaceful, mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Loretta. "Don't forget, book club at my house tonight, and bring that peach cobbler recipe." I smiled. Book club had become one of the highlights of my week. 8 women, all over 60, all with their own stories of survival and reinvention. We talked about books, yes, but we also talked about life, about healing, about what it meant to start over when you thought your story was already written. Another text came through, this one from the first Denise. "Coffee on Wednesday? I want to hear about the foundation meeting." The foundation. That was my new project, the thing that got me out of bed with purpose every morning. 3 months ago, I'd used part of my divorce settlement to start the Second Chances Foundation, a nonprofit that helped women over 50 rebuild their lives after financial abuse. We provided legal support, financial counseling, job training, and most importantly, community. The first Denise was my co-founder. Together, we'd turned our pain into purpose, helping women who were going through what we'd been through. We'd already helped 12 women escape abusive situations and rebuild their financial independence. And we were just getting started. My phone rang. This time it was my lawyer, Denise Whitmore. "Good morning, Vivian. I have some news you're going to want to hear." "Good news or bad news?" "Definitely good. The IRS just sent over the final restitution payment, $3.7 million divided among all of Clifton's victims. Your share is $1.2 million. I nearly dropped my coffee. $1.2 million? Plus the assets you already received in the divorce. Vivian, you're a wealthy woman. What are you going to do with it? I thought about that question for a long time after we hung up. What was I going to do with it? The old Vivian would have been scared of that much money, scared of making the wrong decision, scared of doing anything without asking someone else's opinion first. But I wasn't the old Vivian anymore. I called the foundation's accountant and told her to transfer $500,000 to our operating fund. Then I set up trust funds for the grandchildren I hope to have someday, invested the rest for my retirement, and donated a generous amount to Greater Hope Baptist Church's community outreach program. By the time I was done, I felt lighter than I had in years. The money Clifton had stolen, the wealth he'd built on lies and betrayal, was now going to help people. It felt like justice, real justice. That evening, I drove to Loretta's house for book club. The other ladies were already there, sitting in her living room with plates of food and glasses of wine. "There she is," Loretta announced as I walked in. "Our very own legal warrior." The women clapped and cheered, and I felt my face get hot. I still wasn't used to being celebrated. For so long, I'd been the woman in the background, the wife who supported but never shined. Learning to accept recognition was harder than I'd expected. We spent the evening talking about our book, a novel about a woman who reinvented herself at 70. But the conversation quickly turned personal, the way it always did. "How are you really doing?" asked Paulette, a 72-year-old retired teacher who'd left her husband after 40 years. "I know everyone keeps asking, but I mean really. How's your heart? I thought about the question. How was my heart? Healing, I said finally. Some days are harder than others. I still get angry when I think about all the years I wasted. But mostly, I feel free. For the first time in my adult life, I'm making decisions based on what I want, not what someone else needs from me. And that feels good. The women nodded, understanding in their eyes. Every one of them had her own story of loss and rebirth. "You're an inspiration," said Geneva, a 68-year-old widow who'd discovered her late husband had gambled away their retirement. "Watching you fight back, watching you refuse to be destroyed, it gave me courage to rebuild my own life." "We're all inspirations to each other," I said. "That's what community means." After book club, I drove home feeling full, not just from the food, but from the love, the support, the sisterhood. These women had become my family in a way that blood relatives never had. When I got home, there was a car parked in my driveway, a sleek black sedan with rental plates. My heart started racing. For a moment I thought maybe Clifton had gotten out early, had come back to... But then the driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was in her early 40s, black, beautiful, with Clifton's eyes. "Mrs. Hayes?" she said hesitantly. "I'm Jasmine, Clifton's daughter, from his first marriage." I'd never met Clifton's children from his first marriage. He'd told me they'd chosen their mother's side in the divorce and wanted nothing to do with him. Now I wondered if that was another lie. "Hello, Jasmine," I said carefully. "What can I do for you?" She stopped, seemingly unsure how to continue. "Can we talk, please? I drove all the way from Columbus." I should have said no, should have protected myself from whatever drama this might bring. But something in her face, something vulnerable and scared, reminded me of myself 6 months ago. "Come inside," I said. We sat in my living room with tea between us, and Jasmine told me her story. "My father wasn't a good man," she began. "I've known that since I was a kid. He abandoned us when I was 12, left my mom with nothing. We struggled for years while he built his empire. He never paid child support, never called on birthdays, never acknowledged that we existed." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "When I heard about what he did to you, about the trial and everything, part of me was glad. Finally, someone made him pay. But then I felt guilty for being glad. He's still my father, you know." I nodded. I understood complicated feelings about family. "I came here because I wanted to thank you," Jasmine continued, "for standing up to him, for not letting him get away with it. My mom tried to fight him 30 years ago and she lost everything. She's still working at 68 years old because he destroyed her financially, but you won. And that gives me hope that maybe justice is real." "Your mother is Denise," I said, understanding dawning. "The first Denise. We've become friends." Jasmine's eyes widened. "You know my mom? She helped me take your father down. She gave me the evidence and the courage I needed to fight back. Your mother is a remarkable woman." Tears filled Jasmine's eyes. "She is. She always has been. I just wish she'd gotten the justice you got." "Maybe she can," I said slowly, an idea forming. "The foundation I started, the Second Chances Foundation. We help women rebuild after financial abuse. But we could do more. We could help women like your mother who lost everything years ago and never got it back. Would she be open to that?" "I think she'd love that," Jasmine said. "She's been working 2 jobs for the last 5 years, trying to save enough to retire. She's exhausted." "Tell her to call me," I said. "We'll figure something out." After Jasmine left, I sat in my living room thinking about the ripples of Clifton's cruelty. How many lives had he damaged? How many women and children had suffered because of his selfishness? But I also thought about the ripples of fighting back. How my courage had inspired other women. How the first Denise's testimony had given victims a voice. how our foundation was changing lives, one woman at a time. The next week, I met with the first Denise at the foundation office. "I have a proposition," I said. "What if we used some of the foundation's funds to help you retire? You've been working yourself to death for 30 years because of what Clifton did. That's not right." Denise shook her head. "Vivian, I can't take charity." "It's not charity, it's restitution, and it's what you deserve." I pulled out a proposal I'd been working on. "What if you came to work for the foundation full-time? We need someone with your knowledge, your experience, your fire. We'll pay you a real salary, enough that you can leave those 2 jobs and focus on helping other women. You'd be doing meaningful work and finally getting the security you deserve." Denise stared at the proposal, tears streaming down her face. "You'd do that for me?" "You did it for me first," I said. "You gave me the tools to fight back. Now let me give you a chance to build the life Clifton stole from you." She accepted. 2 weeks later, Denise Hayes became the Second Chances Foundation's Director of Victim Services. We celebrated with the whole team, a group of fierce, brilliant women who'd all survived their own battles and were now dedicated to helping others do the same. That night, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Hayes?" It was a woman's voice, young, shaking. "This is Yvette Morrison." I hadn't heard from Yvette since the trial. Last I'd heard, she'd moved to Charlotte and was working for a small investment firm, her reputation in Atlanta destroyed. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. "I want to apologize. I know that doesn't fix anything, and I know you have no reason to accept it. But I need you to know. I didn't know. About the first wife, about the pattern, about any of it. Clifton told me you were separated when we started seeing each other. He told me your marriage was dead. I believed him." "You believed him for 15 years? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. "No. I started figuring it out about 3 years ago. I found evidence that he was still living with you, still pretending to be the devoted husband. When I confronted him, he said he was going to leave you, that he just needed time to do it right. And I believed that too, because I wanted to." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because my mother made me call you. She said I owed you the truth. And she was right." Yvette's voice broke. "I'm not trying to make excuses. I made terrible choices. I hurt you, and I have to live with that. But I want you to know that I'm getting help now. Therapy. And I'm trying to understand how I became the kind of person who could do what I did." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hang up, to tell her I didn't care about her healing journey. But another part of me, the part that had learned about grace and forgiveness at Greater Hope Baptist Church, knew that hurt people hurt people. And Yvette had been hurt by Clifton too, even if she'd also been complicit. "I hope therapy helps you," I said finally. "I hope you figure out how to be a better person. But Yvette, if I ever find out you're involved with another married man, if I ever hear that you've hurt another woman the way you hurt me, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. Do you understand?" "I understand. And Mrs. Hayes, thank you for everything, for exposing Clifton, for stopping him before he could do this to someone else. You saved me, even though you didn't mean to." After we hung up, I sat with that conversation for a long time. I didn't forgive Yvette. I might never forgive her. But I could let go of the rage, let go of the need for revenge. She'd have to live with her choices. That was punishment enough. 3 months later, the Second Chances Foundation held its first annual gala. We raised over $500,000 to expand our services. The ballroom was filled with survivors, supporters, and activists, all gathered to celebrate the power of women helping women. I stood at the podium to give the keynote speech, looking out at all those faces, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. "A year ago," I began, "I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost everything. I'd lost a liar, a cheat, a man who never valued me. And in losing him, I found myself. The crowd applauded, but I raised my hand for quiet. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that leaving is easy. It's not. It's terrifying and painful and lonely. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, days I didn't think I could go on. But I did go on, and so can you. I looked at the first Denise, sitting at a front table with her daughter Jasmine. I looked at Loretta, beaming with pride. I looked at all the women we'd already helped, women who were now thriving, rebuilding, reclaiming their lives. We're told that our value comes from our relationships, from being good wives, good mothers, good daughters. We're told that starting over after 50 is impossible, that we're too old, too set in our ways, too damaged. But that's a lie. The truth is, it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. It's never too late to demand better. It's never too late to choose yourself. The applause was deafening. Women stood, cheering, crying, celebrating not just me, but themselves, their own courage, their own survival. After the gala, I drove home alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt full, complete, whole. I thought about Clifton, sitting in his prison cell, probably bitter and angry and blaming everyone but himself. I thought about all the years I'd wasted loving him, all the dreams I'd deferred for him. And then I stopped thinking about him at all. Because the truth was, Clifton Hayes didn't matter anymore. He was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. And I was writing new chapters now, better chapters, chapters about friendship and purpose and joy. Chapters about a woman who thought she'd lost everything and discovered she'd actually lost nothing that mattered. Chapters about freedom. That night, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine and my journal. I'd started journaling at my therapist's suggestion, writing down my thoughts and feelings, tracking my healing. I opened to a blank page and wrote, "Dear Vivian, you did it. You survived. You fought back. You won. But more importantly, you learned that winning wasn't about destroying Clifton. It was about rebuilding yourself. You learned that you're stronger than you ever knew, that you're capable of things you never imagined, that you don't need anyone to complete you because you were always complete on your own. You learned that community is everything, that women supporting women can change the world. You learned that it's never too late to start over, never too late to choose yourself, never too late to become who you were always meant to be. The last year was hard, but it was also the year you found yourself, the year you discovered your voice, the year you learned that your worth was never determined by how much someone else valued you. This is just the beginning. You have so much life left to live, so many adventures ahead, so many women to help, so many stories to write. So keep going, keep growing, keep choosing yourself. You've earned it. With love, Vivian." I closed the journal and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, women were suffering in silence, trapped in situations they thought they couldn't escape. Women who thought they were too old, too dependent, too damaged to start over. I wanted them to know they were wrong. I wanted them to know that I'd stood exactly where they were standing. And I'd made it to the other side. I wanted them to know that it's never too late to leave, never too late to fight, never too late to live. And I was going to spend the rest of my life making sure they heard that message. Because that's what survivors do. We survive. And then we reach back and pull others forward. I raised my glass to the stars, to the universe, to every woman who'd ever been told she was too much or not enough. "Here's to second chances," I said out loud. "Here's to starting over. Here's to choosing ourselves." The night air was warm and sweet. Inside my house, everything was quiet and peaceful. I was 64 years old, and my life was just beginning. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. Please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.